Shalom Israel first. Only of all praise and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Shai Ba'ashem Kakadash. I want to see Apostle Ezra Millstone, peace citation to 1/3 of Israel. With this lesson, I want to title it, There's No Edification, or something like this, or some along the lines of edification, Because ultimately Jake has a zeal, but not according to knowledge, Jake, give glory to the Lord, but it's not in the correct way, You walking across from Philly to Cali, no edification comes from that. Lord ain't tell you to, walk across the country to wake the elect up. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the elect. Alright? And it says, I'm going to read it. It says, streamer Humble Zay has officially completed his walk from Philly to Cali. After 124 days, he walked 3,000 miles and raised nearly 240,000, it's like 200,000 for charity. It says, God used me as a vessel to show the world, to show the youth that anything is possible. Yeah, really anyone can fucking walk across from Philly to Cali, but for what? Why would I want to do that? But anyone can do that, but guess what? Not everyone can teach. All right, that's some food for thought. But let me go to the scriptures. I typed in edify. And at the end of the day, it's all about the edification of the body. All right, it's not for the whole world. It's about waking up the elect. Getting the elect sealed and getting the fuck out of here. All right, because once the elect are sealed, that's when this place is gonna fall. All right, but there's Romans 14 and 19. It says, let us therefore follow after the things which make for peace and things wherewith one may edify another. Alright. So, wherewith one may edify another. You get edified through these scriptures. Alright. I didn't watch the stream, so I'm not too sure if scriptures was coming out, but I'm pretty sure if they were, it was probably butchered, probably broke it down wrong, or probably it's not till Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Shai. Damn, move, nigga. Slack. Fucking cracker in the way. But okay. This is 1 Corinthians 14 and 12. This is not meant to be long. But it reads, even so ye, for as much as ye are zealous of spiritual gifts, seek that ye may excel to the edifying of the church. All right. Ephesians 4 and 12, it says, for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry. Let me get this right here. Ephesians 4 and 11, it says, and he gave some apostles and some prophets and some evangelists and some pastors and teachers. All right, and that's whom the Lord is dealing with. He's not dealing with, people that, let me feed the homeless, and I'm doing this in the name of the, JC. Let me pass out turkeys on Thanksgiving, and I'm doing the Lord's work. The Lord ain't tell you to do any of that, all right? Because at the end of the day, the Lord's the Lord's elect is gonna eat, all right? But it says, for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Hamashiach, till we all come in the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of the Most High, unto a perfect man, unto the measure of the stature of the fullness of Yahweh Shai. All right, and how do you come into how do you step into that perfect man? Well, you got to know what it is, And me walking across the states, like, it just goes to show you how man, that's why scriptures say Jake is the saddest people. All right, and we thank the Lord that we have this truth, because scripture says there's a way that seeming right into a man, but the end of the ways are the ways of death. You may be thinking you're doing the right thing, but the whole time you're not doing the right thing. All right, but that's why the Lord, he gives you warning. He tells you what it is. He'll tell you by his prophets. His mouthpiece. So in Luke 1 and 70. All right, but I'm gonna keep reading. It says that we henceforth be no more called that we henceforth be no more children tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness whereby they lie in wait to deceive. But speaking the truth in love may grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Yahushua. All right. Okay, Khan. Let me skip down. 17 verse. It says, "This I say therefore, and testify in the Lord, that ye henceforth walk not as other Gentiles walk, in the vanity of their mind." And the Gentiles are Israelites. Israelites they're not in the right mind, ultimately. That are not in the truth. It says, "Having an understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of the Most High through the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart." All right. Let me see what I wrote. Exactly. Jason, the heathen mind frame. All right. Let me go to Zeal. Because all throughout, look at past accounts, or even Jake now. Jake has a zeal towards the Lord, but it's not the correct Lord. All right, because I say this because Jake is into idols, God and JC. That's who they call upon on. That's who they call upon. Even if you tell them the truth. All right, but now we're in a time where there's no excuses. All right, this truth has gone out, and what you need to do is what you need to do. All right, the word has gone out. That's why Yahushua said, "If I had not spoken, that they would have no cloak for the sin." All right, but this is Romans 10 and sort of 1. It says, "Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to the Most High for Israel is that they might be saved. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of the Most High, but not according to knowledge." All right, let me look at the word. Let me keep reading. It says, "For they being ignorant of the Most High's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness." So them trying to do everything else but what the Lord commanded them to do. That's what Jake think. Oh, well, I feel like I need to do this. I feel like I need to make music, for God. All this shit. The Lord didn't tell you to do any of that. He said, go out on highways and byways and compel them to the marriage. All right? Teach his word, and that's it. It says, their own righteousness have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of the Most High, because they're doing their own thing. When you submit, you humble down and you accept the will of it, and that's what Jake don't want to do. They want to do their own thing, and you doing your own thing is gonna get you fucked up. All right, so lucky for my vulgarity, but let me go to let me type in zeal. I'll look at that word zeal. I'll read the NLT. It says, Romans 10 and 2. I know what enthusiasm they have for the Most High, but it is misdirected zeal. For they don't understand the Most High's way of making people right with himself. Refusing to accept the Most High's way, they cling to their own way of getting right with the Most High by trying to keep the law. All right. But let me go to zeal. Zeal, excitement of mind, ardor, fervor of spirit, zeal on behalf of, fierceness of indignation. All right. So ultimately, let me look up these words right quick. Ardor, heat of passion or desire. And you can see, Jake has a passion for a higher power, the Lord. And I wanted to say earlier, look at in the book of Acts, This is Acts 17 and sort of 22. I'm reading NLT. It says, so Paul, standing before the council, addressed them as follows: "Men of Athens, I notice that you are very religious in every way. It says, for as I was walking along, I saw your many shrines, and one of your altars had this inscription on it, to an unknown God. This God whom you worship without knowing is the one I'm telling you about." All right, and that's what we doing. Beginning with elders, apostles on down. That's what we're doing to our people. We're telling them the truth. We're telling them the true power. Which is Yahweh and his son named Yahushua. All right, but Jake, they don't want to hear it. They're clinging to these idols because these idols these other religions, they don't require you to change. You can do you. Oh, I can make music and be in the truth. I can still smoke weed and just, have long hair and all this shit. Like, no, you gotta change. All right, but Jake don't want to do it. All right, and going back to the beginning, let me look at that word edify too. All right, let's get Romans 14. All right, I'm gonna look up the word edify, because this is all it's for. Jake think that this is it. 144 calling over Shemir Shad, but reading on down, it says building up, the act of one who promotes another's growth in, let's say, Christian wisdom, piety, happiness, holiness, building. All right, and that's what these videos, these lessons are for, is to build the elect's faith. To build them up in the knowledge, to get closer to the Lord, to stand firm in the evil days to come. Because these videos ain't just, the preaching ain't just for empty words. These are for you to cleave onto these words, learn and grow. So that way you have these things stored in the times to come when, the famine of the word comes and all hell breaks loose. Because scripture says, Isaiah 33:6, wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times. And fear of the Lord is his treasure. All right, roughly paraphrasing. So you doing everything else but teaching this truth. What are you really doing, for the Lord? You trying to do your own thing, and the Lord ain't about doing your own thing. All right. Let me get a 1 Samuel 15. I'm feeling my demon about to call me, so I'm gonna try to speed it up. This is 1 Samuel 15 and 23. It says, for rebellion, this is when Saul, he rebelled against the Lord. The Lord told him to do this, and he did his own thing, and the Lord was displeased. So therefore the Lord kicked him from being king. 1 Samuel 15 and 23, it says, for rebellion is as a sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry, because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he had also rejected thee from being king. All right. So we don't want to piss the Lord off by doing our own thing. All right. To obey better. Okay, yeah, never mind. It's literally right here. Oh, one verse above. 1 Samuel 15 and 22 says, and Samuel said, hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. All right, so all you got to do is listen, humble down, do what you got to do. And the scripture says, Yahushua said, my burden is not light. Or let me get it right quick. This is Matthew 11 and 28. It says, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Do this truth, rest for our souls. It says, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. All right. It says, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So really, this is a light thing, You out here walking 124 days. I mean, not a lot of people do that. All right, but what's it for? What was the purpose of it? So really, this is all about the elect at the end of the day. All right, but I'm gonna end the lesson here. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying and well said. With that, I want to give all praise and glory and honor to Yahweh Bashim Al Shah, Bashim Kakadash, the next time, Shalom.